Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join me for a small look into the future. We did one of these before Christmas where there was a clear demarcation point for us, and we decided to have a little look ahead at the next load of fixtures and see whether we thought teams would trend up or trend down. There's less of a demarcation point this time in the second half of the season, and I suspect that will only be exacerbated by more cancellations of games in the coming weeks. There's going to be teams on mad runs of fixtures as this season winds down. But what we're going to do is have a look at the 10 games coming up for the top 9 and see if we can fathom who will likely be in the top 6 in 10 games time. Here is the current table, so apologies if you're a fan of Bristol City, Blackburn and Preston. Had to have a cut-off point somewhere, so we'll just have a look at the top 9, particularly sorry if you're a Bristol City fan, because just a point from that game in hand and they would have been in the top 9, but there you go. Cry me a river. So we'll have a look at the previous 10 games in terms of the form and what's coming up in the next 10 games in terms of sort of patterns and opponents, etc, etc. The first thing we should point out is the table is reasonably tight other than 2 places. Norwich have given themselves a 4-point cushion over second place, and if you wind it down to 7th place, an 11-point cushion. So when we're talking about the top 6, there is a pretty certain chance that Norwich will be in the top 6 in 10 games time. And also with that top 5 having that small gap, you do wonder whether at least 4 of them will still be in there. Anyway, I've gone through each team and let's do them one by one from the top downwards, and we'll see who's got what coming up and where people are going to stand in 10 games times, which for most, fingers crossed, without a slew of cancellations, will bring them to 33 games, so 13 to go. So pretty much the home straight, and with my 2 points per game hat on, which Norwich have achieved, 33, possibly around the 60-point mark, 66 if you're doing really well for those teams, particularly up in the top 2 or 3. For Norwich, this is how it looks, and they've been super consistent really throughout the season, pretty much from game 2 or 3. The last 10 sees them in 3rd position in the form table. However, that is still with a 2 points per game at 20 points. So they would be more than happy with that. That form continued through the season. Well, unless Brentford, who are top of the form charts, can match what they've done, would definitely see them promoted and pretty much likely to be champions as well, without, like I say, a mad run from someone else. In terms of the next 10, there's only one difficulty factor for Norwich, and that is that they're one of a couple of teams to be playing 6 away and only 4 at home. So perhaps they'll need to pick up a few away 3-pointers, but I do believe they are one of the best, if not the best, away team in the league as we stand already. So that shouldn't be an issue for the Canaries with their excellent squad. Only one top 6 opponent in the next 10. That is Swansea. 3 current bottom 6 opponents. Although I know some people will take that with a pinch of salt, with Sheffield Wednesday, Derby and Forest in the current bottom 6 and all improving. The average opponent position for Norwich is 14th. So not too much to worry about other than the away game quirk there. And given the 4-point gap, there's no reason why Norwich won't still be first in 10 games time. In second currently are Swansea and their form over the last 10 games. They match Norwich, just pop them out by 3 on goal difference with 20 points over the last 10. Therefore, they're second in the table for the season and second over the last 10 games, which tells us this is not a flash in the pan. They do have 6 away games as opposed to 4 home games. And again, only one top 6 opponent, and that could be a top 2 shootout because it is that game against Norwich. In terms of the bottom 6 opponents, this looks nice as well because they've got 4 out of 6 bottom 6 opponents to play in the next 10. So again, things look fairly reasonable for Swansea in terms of staying where they are. We do need to just throw in though a little bit of chaos in terms of the transfer window and a couple of loan players in out. We expect a tiny bit of movement there, probably less so than at Norwich, who just frankly need to keep hold of Aaron's, Buendia and Pookie, and all will be okay there. But Swansea, not too much trouble, you would have thought there. For Bournemouth, the last 10 games actually has them in 7th position. So, and we did say this in our Christmas run, that Bournemouth, well, are they outperforming their actual form, as in they're 3rd in the league, but the recent form has them 7th. That is only 16 points in those last 10 as well, and 1.6 is kind of just outside of playoffs form, as 7th would testify. 5 at home, 5 away, only 2 top 6 opponents to play, and like Swansea, 4 bottom 6 opponents, and the most favourable average opponent position of 15.2 there. So again, this does have the air of feeling very tight. Nothing in those first 3 that intimate a massive change of position, and some desirable numbers there for Bournemouth as well. For Brentford, well, you can see no gold or red there, so fairly middling stuff for them. They have been the best side in the Championship over the last 10 games. A real purple patch coming in to form. 24 points in the last 10 has seen them up to 4th, but less consistent, obviously, than 3 other teams over the season. 5 at home, 5 away, 2 top 6 opponents and 2 bottom 6 opponents. An average opponent of 12.4 is a bit higher than the other teams, but it feels nicely balanced for Brentford. So there is a small possibility, I would have thought, maybe not getting up close to Norwich just yet, but I feel we might see them in a higher position in 10 games' time. Brentford, keep your eye on that if they can keep anywhere near the form they're in at the moment, and given that it looks just a bit more stable than maybe the 2 teams directly above them. 5th place Reading are behind with their form. So last 10 games, they've been the 6th best team in the league, but they lie 5th in the league. And of course, a lot of this goes back to this amazing start of 7 wins and a draw in the first 8. That's, I said at the time, that pretty much guarantees you, without the biggest fall off a cliff possible, pretty much guarantees you a decent league position after even just 8 games. Those 22 points that went on the board so quickly. 5 at home, 5 away, and like Brentford, 2 top 6 opponents and 2 bottom 6 opponents. An average opponent position of 12th is the least desirable of any, I believe. I've got that in red, although I think there might be one that's higher. I'll have to double check that as we go through. There may be inaccuracy in my research there. Reading, it's just that those words, regression to the mean, especially against those first 8 games. However, the form in the last 10 would see them stay up there and in a playoff place. It just depends what's coming up on the rails behind them. At the moment, that would be Watford. However, The last 10 form, not good. In fact, we've got a -5 there. 11th in terms of the last 10 games. And they're 6th in the league. So 5 places below in terms of the form to where they actually are. 5 at home, 5 away. The top 6 opponents is the most desirable though, because they don't play any of them. So Watford, well, I mean, it's middling. Look, no top 6 opponents, only one bottom 6 opponent. So what the fixture list takes with one hand, it gives with the other, and vice versa. So no top 6 opponents, but only one bottom 6 opponent there. If you do believe in my theory that there will be a rising of the tide from the current bottom 6 that might skew my working out here, that's probably quite desirable for Watford. An average opponent of 13.6. So perhaps they could move above Reading and maybe into the top 5 over the next 10 games. Now we come to the teams outside the playoffs. And Middlesbrough's run looks desirable, it has to be said. I wonder if they can just do a clever addition or two as well in the transfer window to aid their experienced and wily manager Neil Warnock and their excellent home form. They're 4th in the table over the last 10 games with 18 points from those games. They probably would take that again. I wonder whether that would see them into the top 6, obviously depending on what Reading and Watford do above them. Now, what's interesting there is Borough have been imperious at home and they've got 6 home games and 4 away games. That's very desirable. They do have 3 top 6 opponents to play, but 2 of those top 6 opponents will have to be played away from home. However, they've got 4 out of the bottom 6 to play against in an average opponent position of 12.8. So they could squeeze up on the top 6. We'll see how that pans out. Now Stoke, you're going to see a lot of red on there. We know they have added already in this transfer window Matondo, Norrington Davis and Jack Clark coming in. Hopefully they'll have a few more of their injured players back. However, the numbers over the next 10 games, logic and statistics say it's going to be tricky for them to get in the next 10. It may come after that. There'll still be 13 games to go. But the form over the last 10 has them 14th. So that's the biggest differential. They are 6 places in their form below where they're actually in the table. Like a few other teams, undesirable 6 away games out of the 10. And the most top 6 opponents with 4. If they're going to do it, Stoke, they're going to do it the hard way. But that recent form of being in 14th place is predicated on drawing a lot of games. They've only lost 2. They've drawn 5 of those last 10, which pops them on 14 points. And, well, they're consistent, aren't they? They do need to get a couple more wins in there, though. The average opponent is, and I did have it incorrect earlier in the show, but is the most undesirable at 10.7, obviously with those 4 top 6 opponents. So I've said all season Stoke will find their way in there eventually. I have to stand by that because I've said it all season. However, it may not be in the next 10 games that they do indeed get there. And if they do, they're going to do it the hard way. Barnsley are our last team here. 9th place Barnsley, who we basically separate into Struber and Ishmael. Struber, well, whatever went on there, and maybe he wanted out for the last few games of his reign. But under Ishmael, it's been very, very good form and certainly playoff challenging form. Last 10, they are 5th, and in terms of a differential, that's a nice +4. That's the best out of anybody in terms of outperforming their league position. They also, in terms of desirable logic, have 6 games at home. They do have 3 top 6 opponents, and the theme with Barnsley has been a little bit flat track bully. But if you're in 6th and you're a flat track bully, that means you're beating the vast number of teams in the league, doesn't it, in terms of beating those beneath you and maybe struggling with those above you. It doesn't bode well for winning a playoff game, obviously, but hey, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. 2 bottom 6 opponents and an average opponent position there of 11.7. What we're saying is if Barnsley and Ishmael can be consistent in their form across the season, they'll likely make the playoffs. It just depends on others around them, whether they can punish the slow start and make Barnsley have a impossibly high standard to even get in there. So that's the analysis over the 10 games time. Let's just have another look at the table. So in terms of what we've learned, it's hard to see Norwich being outside of the top 2. There is an opportunity, I think, for Brentford to climb up above Bournemouth and or Swansea. The same for Watford in terms of trending up. Reading you'd put in a trending down situation, and Stoke are going to find it tricky. Middlesbrough and Barnsley looks desirable, but look at the points differential. Barnsley is already 6 points back from Reading. What we're expecting is not a lot of movement. Norwich probably still in the automatics. Would Brentford join them, I wonder, or can Swansea keep on that excellent form too? And if anyone's going to come out, is it going to be Reading? Watford desirable, and Borough with some nice pointers in their favour, let's just say, but a 4-point gap back on Reading. Do have that game in hand though, don't they? It's all going to be very interesting. Please take everything I've said with a vast pinch of salt. We're only talking 10 games time, and remember, literally in 1 game's time, the bottom 6 might be totally different, and the bottom 6 I'm judging teams against now may be completely arbitrary in 3 games time. We will find out. Let me know what you think in the comments and how this is going to shake out over this next little period of 10 games. And let me know if you've looked further ahead. Are there periods for any of these clubs where you can look and see, oh, easy 5 games in a row there, or very hard 5 games in a row? Because on those things, promotion or a playoff place can hinge. Thank you everybody for watching. Thought I'd throw that one in tonight. We don't have a Friday night watch along to do, so a little bit of analysis and we'll be back to it tomorrow. Over and out. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button, and to be notified every time we upload, ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.